Welcome to Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast, where we cover all things ECNL. We have a new season that features Christian Lavers, the president and CEO of the ECNL, their vice president, Doug Bracken, and one of their key employees, Ashley Willis. With the championships going on, those three took a break, so we went back to the archives and found an interview with Charlie Stilitano that we did at the ECNL AGM and Coaching Symposium back in January. Charlie Stilitano with a storied history in the game. He was busy before the MLS, a key part of the MLS, and now a key part of the international game, which the timing is really good when you consider the Copa America just wrapping up in this country. Charlie Stilitano has a fascinating resume and is a fascinating man with great stories and a great sense of humor, a wonderful human being. We visit with Charlie Stilitano on this week's edition of Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast, after this message. But I do want to remind you that Christian, Doug, and Ashley will return in 2 weeks to recap the ECNL Boys and Girls Championships and answer your questions. If you do have questions, email us at info@theecnl.com. I'm Dean Linke, and I'll bring you my visit with Charlie Stilitano after this message from an ECNL corporate partner in Nike.
Nike is a proud sponsor of ECNL Girls. Nothing can stop what we can do together to bring positive change to our communities. You can't stop sport because #you can't stop our voices. Follow Nike on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Welcome back to Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast, as we have visited with every presenter at the 2024 ECNL Coaching Symposium in Las Vegas. It's been the biggest and best coaching symposium for the ECNL, and that includes the biggest and best list of speakers. And I think very much we may have saved the best for last, somebody that I've known for a long, long time. I broke in U.S. soccer in '89 and then eventually found my way to the World Cup and MLS, where I would run into one of the most respected men in the game. It's Charlie Stilitano. And Charlie, I'm going to read your bio, but first let me say hello and what an honor it is to reconnect with you after all these years.
Dean, you brought a smile to my face. It's great to see you. I have nothing but great memories of us working together and both of us pushing his boulder up a hill that we call soccer, you know?
You know, one of the memories was the Parmalat Cup. Early on, well before the World Cup, you know, kind of as an early test.
Exactly.
You ran that whole thing, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. It was, and it was the first time ever that virtual imaging was used on the field.
Okay.
And the next day, FIFA freaked out and sent a note, none of this is allowed. And we did it with Princeton Video Imaging, and it was pretty cool. First international broadcast ever. Somebody gave me that the other day, showed me that.
That's incredible. And that was also my first introduction to Jim Trecker.
Yeah.
Who, you know, I eventually would follow in his footsteps and that type of thing. How's he doing? Do you have any idea?
You know, he was in Providence. Last I talked to him, I've talked to Jim maybe a couple years back now. He was doing great. He was retired, doing really well, but I haven't seen him in a couple of years.
Okay.
COVID, we lost touch with some people, you know.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Well, and then one other kind of funny little thing, and then I'm going to, if you'll bear with me, I want to read your bio, and then we're going to get into kind of what you had to say here as one of the key presenters. But, you know, the other fascinating thing is I'm imagining you still talk to Sunil a little bit, right?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I do as well. And then, you know, Alan Rothenberg. And so, Charlie, I'm the press officer for the U.S. World Cup team. One of the things that I had to do was once a month go up to Century City Towers, right?
Right.
So I go up there and I see Sunil and I see Alan and Marla and Scott, and, you know, they're asking me for a report and this is what's going on and this is good and these are the players that we should profile and everything else. And then I see this little black-haired girl with dark eyes, you know, right in my wheelhouse, and I'm like, Sunil, who is that? And he's like, you know, it was Leah Paval, right? And he's like, you know, don't you worry about it because you got no chance. you got no chance. And so every New Year's Eve, I was married on New Year's Eve. Sunil was kind enough to come to my wedding with Bill Nuttall, who was my GM.
Great guys.
And so, Charlie, New Year's Eve, right when I wake up, First text, Sunil Gulati, I got no chance. First one I said. And he'll always have a crazy barb, an interesting barb. You know, you're married up. Yeah. You hit an inside pitch, that you normally wouldn't hit. I mean, he's still talking shit.
Yeah.
29 years later, by the way. So
she is an incredible person, really beautiful, really smart. And, Dean, I knew you'd get her. I had no problem with that.
Well, I appreciate that. So, Charlie Stilitano, quite frankly, a legend of the game. He's the chairman for Serie A USA, working to strengthen the league's expansion in the U.S. through new commercial opportunities like regional deals with clubs and leagues, friendlies, and fan events. Some of the biggest games played in the U.S., Charlie's been around. In 2017, Charlie was named to ESPN FC's Top 50 and the Score's Top 25 most influential people in world soccer. Charlie is regarded as one of the most experienced and well-connected Americans in the global game. He has built strong relationships and friendships with the most powerful people in the sport for over 30 years. In 2013, Charlie co-founded Relevant Sports Group and helped create the preeminent preseason tournament for European soccer, the International Champions Cup. The tournament spans multiple continents each summer and fields the premier European soccer clubs in the world. Charlie is also a board member of Street Soccer USA and co-hosts the Football Show, which is why he's such a natural on this podcast, a pioneering radio talk show every weekday morning from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on SiriusXM FC Channel 157. Prior to Relevant, Charlie held several leadership positions in the soccer business, including the venue executive director for the '94 World Cup in New York, New Jersey, the general manager of the New York, New Jersey Metro Stars, one of the flagship teams, right? One of the first 10, indeed, of Major League Soccer, and vice chairman and board member of the U.S. Soccer Foundation. Charlie also served as founder, president, and CEO of Champions World LLC from 2000 to 2006, and he worked with the Creative Artists Agency from 2007 to 2012 as a senior executive in the soccer business division, which he helped launch. Charlie graduated in 1981 from Princeton University, where he was an All-American and captain of the men's varsity soccer team. He earned a law degree in '87 from Rutgers University School of Law. In 2020, he was awarded the most prestigious honor bestowed by the Alumni Association, the Letter in Life Award. This recognition honors those who, in gaining distinction for themselves, have also brought honor to the school. Charlie's network and experience make him one of the most connected, respected, and influential figures in international soccer. And dare I say, I was honored with the hug that I received from Charlie Stilitano right when he walked in after years of knowing that you were there but not being able to see you. So thanks for that hug. Meant the world to me, Charlie.
It meant the world to me too, Dean. It's just great to see you. Bring back so many wonderful memories. And unlike Sunil, I realize what a class guy you are. And I want it on the record that I knew all along you could get Leah without a problem.
Well, I'm thinking, Charlie, you were there for the press conference when we had Jorge Campos and Tab Ramos, because that was in New York. And I definitely feel like you were at the Palladium when we had Roger Twibell MC and unveiled all that. You remember those days?
Sure. I was, Mark Abbott always likes to point out that he was the first employee of Major League Soccer. But I think it's fair to say I was the first employee of a team in Major League Soccer.
Okay.
Because I started working for the Metro Stars on October 15th, 1994.
Yes.
And so that's got to be the first employee of a team.
It's got to be.
So Mark, all I could say is Mark's very mean to me. I told him this too when I saw him, and he laughed like crazy because he goes, but I felt like you were cheating me a few years. I said, no, you were with the league. I got it. You founded it. I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Well, Mark's office was right near where I was in the Century City Towers, so I got to know him well. I always used to watch him sneak out to go watch an afternoon movie, by the way.
Really?
Oh, yeah. When we were starting it, man, like he definitely knew when to go watch the movie. And then, of course, you had Ivan Gazidis and Randy Bernstein and Kathy Carter and, a lot of people.
Great people.
Right? Yeah.
Great people that did an amazing job. And, some people I've lost touch with, some I still see. And, but just an incredible collection of people that came together for that World Cup '94. And I think people don't realize none of us knew what the hell we were doing. I mean, it was new to all of us.
Right.
And so, I think I'd like to believe we had good, smart, hard-working people, but it could have gone wrong, and it turned out pretty well.
Well, I mean, look, I was talking the other day, so I went to Colorado. So the last team name was Colorado. And, Charlie, the only reason I went was because they told me I could call the games, and that's
nice.
all I really wanted to do. They actually kind of wanted me to be the GM, which I wasn't ready for, but we hired a GM that didn't know what he was doing. We hired a coach that didn't even know what he was doing, so that first year was a mess, right? And then we got Mooch.
Yeah.
And Mooch took us all the way to the MLS Cup. So we went from worst to almost first. And we got Dan Counts, who was pretty good as well. So that forgetting that first year was a disaster. But for us, I don't know what it was like for you. If we didn't have the village people, right, or the Monkeys, who I think Davy Jones is dead now, right, or Los Tigres de Notre, the big famous Mexican band, we had nobody at Mile High Stadium watching our team. And now, look at it today, man. It's incredible.
It's incredible. You know, we were always blessed in New York and New Jersey because we had the Cosmos were there first.
Yeah.
And so when we brought over Eddie Fermani, Tony Miola, Tab Ramos, and Roberto Donadoni, people thought, oh, it's the Cosmos again. And like I was saying earlier, we sold 10,000 season tickets. Imagine that in those days. And 4 of the games were games we threw in as extra games, like internationals or friendlies. So we sold a lot of tickets.
Yeah.
And the stadiums were filled, especially in the beginning. I think the first, my goodness. And I remember talking to Kevin Payne, rest his soul, about this, that we were one of the teams that when we played on a weekend, we couldn't always get it. We averaged over 35,000 people a weekend. It wasn't more people like Tab and Tony and Roberto. Respectfully, there was a lot of good young kids that came along, but they were still learning. We had a lot of challenges the first couple of years, and the fans sort of then went away, right?
Okay.
But the initial boom, the first year, I mean, it was crazy. I still remember Gio Savarese scoring a goal. A place I thought it was a World Cup final, for God's sake.
Yeah.
You know?
We are off and rolling with Charlie Stilitano. It's Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast, taking a break from the new format with Christian Lavers, Doug Bracken, and Ashley Willis. Those 3 will be back in 2 weeks as they recap the ECNL Boys and Girls Championships. The girls are already capped. The boys are going on actually as this podcast airs. When we return, more with Charlie Stilitano, one of the legends of the game here in this country, on Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast.
Soccer.com is proud to partner with the ECNL to support the continued development of soccer in the U.S. at the highest levels. We've been delivering quality soccer equipment and apparel to players, fans, and coaches since 1984. Living and breathing the beautiful game ourselves, our goal at Soccer.com is to inspire you to play better, cheer louder, and have more fun. Visit Soccer.com today to check out our unmatched selection of gear, expert advice, and stories of greatness at every level of the game.
We're here with the great Charlie Stilitano, who clearly, I guess Jay Howe is the biggest connection. Christian Lavers is the CEO. I've been broadcasting now for a long time, Charlie. I don't know if you knew that, but just finished my 18th year at the Big Ten Network. Have done all of their soccer for 18 years, including the first ever game on the Big Ten Network. Yeah, and
congratulations. That's
thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, and then North Carolina FC and the North Carolina Courage. But you know, the ECNL and Christian Lavers, who I think is a brilliant person, Me too. You's got a law degree and like beyond smart, right? Like, I mean, I take the IQ way down, you know, when I when I walk in the room.
Well, he's smarter than me too, so don't worry about it.
And I always apologize for it, but I started doing some stuff for them like 3-4 years ago, and now they got me traveling around the country, calling games, and doing it in a unique style where I'm on the field and I'm talking to the players as they're coming in while I'm calling the game, which is pretty neat, and doing this podcast that you're on right now and everything else. My point is, I think the ECNL is amazing. I think they're led by big-time people. All you got to do is watch the Women's College Cup, 75%. Watch the Men's College Cup, see it as well, as far as players that are coming out of it. So you clearly, knowing Jay and everything else, see that the ECNL is legit.
Well, it's beyond legit. I mean, honestly, you know, it started really, the women's part was the girls' part, I guess we could say, is, you know.
The big,
It's okay. I have 2, you know, I have two women now. One's 27 and one's 25. But I remember when they were born, someone said, "Congratulations, you're the proud father of two baby women." You know, so. But you started really on the girl side here, and it's grown. I've been so impressed by this organization, and really, just the level of commitment that the leaders have here. I've been blown away by it, and I was delighted. I was honored, really, when they said, "Come, we'd like you to talk." I said, "Sure, I'm more than happy to." I'm not bashful. So
yeah, awesome. So break it down for me. I've been waiting on you to talk here in, what they're calling the podcast row. Is I think we've done 25 interviews and we've talked to every single speaker. So did you have a title for your presentation, Charlie? What was your
No,
okay.
I did I really thought it would be more they had me going last. Right? And I've done a lot of these conferences over the years, and I find that by the last day, the last guy, if you're having a dry performance or you're looking at slides, you are going to fail.
Right.
You're going to bomb.
Right.
And so I do every year, I do Real Madrid University, and I make sure I follow the UEFA guide that's talking about coefficients and things like this. So I can, I can get in there and have a little fun with things. And I just wanted to keep it light for that reason. In fact, Christian and the Jay and the guy said, let's break for a drink first. The bar's open, you can have a drink, come back and just relax.
So cool, yeah.
And so all I really talked about was about my life in football.
Okay.
And sort of the funny things and funny stories and funny people, great people that I've met along the way. And it's last night I was with the guys here with Christian and with Doug and with Jay, and we're chatting, and Jay knows me, but the other guys don't know me. And so they're like, tell us some stories. And
right.
So we're literally just shooting the shit for like 2 hours last night. And this morning, I get up, I'm thinking, man, oh man, we have like I don't know where to begin. Like, we have so many freaking stories that, just the World Cup alone.
Yeah.
I have 20, 30, like, really funny, touching stories,
of course
right?
you do, yeah.
And then the Metro Stars, and then, the Champions World. I mean, we have so many. I'm so blessed. And so I tried to focus on a couple big moments, starting, the Metro Stars, bringing out how, Chris Unger, Jay Berhalter, and myself came up with the name Metro Stars, and another friend of mine, Paul Campano, and telling a cute story how my neighbor across the street, when, you're sure from that world, there was newspapers. Remember newspapers?
I delivered the Toledo Blade for like 10 years.
Me, the Elizabeth Daily Journal,
Okay.
So, and so I was just telling the stories about these little moments that we have and how different things are now and, what we were dealing with back then. So it was a lot of fun. And then we got into the personalities that I've come across, right? The personalities like Jose Mourinho, Carlo Ancelotti, Sir Alex Ferguson. And I'm blessed that these guys are all dear friends. It's every time I go to the point where either I'm eating dinner with them or I'm cooking them dinner, or we're together, they're cooking me dinner, and we're like, it's no longer work for me.
Yeah.
Right? So if I go to see someone in Europe, I'm at his house all day, and so it's just taken on a different part of my life, and it's really, really, it's just rewarding, it's fun, and I told some good stories, we got some good
and
chuckles.
Charlie, at the end of the day, you can't hide money, so that's part of the reason why you're hanging with those guys,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wish. One of the things that is so funny in life, my daughter said to me, we were coming back from being with Jimmy Pilata up in Boston, and Jimmy's a billionaire, and my kids at this point, they were probably, 2 years apart. They were probably like 20 and 18 maybe, right?
Right.
And we're coming back from, being up Boston, seeing Jimmy, having dinner with him at his house and stuff. And my daughter turns to me completely serious, and she goes, "Hey, Dad, how come we're not rich?" And I said,
"You've done all right, my man."
No, and I said, it's funny, because I really feel rich.
Yeah.
Right? I really feel like what a great, wonderful life I've had,
Yeah,
and
I love that.
I'm going to keep going. But, her thing was, you know all these, not just a little bit rich, Dad, like billionaire rich.
Right,
so
right.
I find it kind of funny that, whatever.
Well, yeah, because even before that, you were hanging out with Lamar Hunt and Robert Kraft and all those guys, and they're billionaire rich too, right?
Yeah, they're all billionaire rich.
Right.
I worked for Steve Ross, for the Miami Dolphins owner, for 10 years. You know, it's like, you hang around with these people. They've been extraordinarily kind to me. You know, I couldn't say a bad word about any of them, but it is kind of funny. They're different than we are. You know?
Right.
It's like I explain to people, like, a good example is professional athletes, right? You had Drew Brees today. And it's not that they're not great people or nice people or kind people, but, they're different. They've been treated a certain way since they're little kids.
Right.
They've been groomed for this. I mean, you're talking big-time professional athletes.
Right.
And it's different than, like what you and I, how we've grown up,
Yeah.
And it's not that they're different in a bad way. They're just different.
Yeah.
So I'd explain to people, like, you meet people like Roberto Donadoni or Paolo Maldini or Lothar Matthäus, and you're like, don't you understand? Since they were 4 years old, people were saying, you're going to be great.
Right.
And sit over here. Let me give you your clothes. Every day you get the clothes you're going to wear. Think about it for a second. You're with the national team. You go up on the board. What are you going to wear today? And this is every day of their life until all of a sudden they're 35 and retired and going, I got to get my own clothes today. I'm like,
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's so well said. And some of them can't totally figure it out. Most of them can, but some of them can't.
No, it's very true. I mean, I think they're blessed in a bit of a way because at least they make a lot of money now. And if you're just a little bit careful, you make so much money, you can save money and not be in a difficult situation when you're done. But, I remember Giorgio Canaglia, and I talked about him today with, like, one of my dearest friends, and he said that was the hardest thing that he had to deal with. And now he was, captain of Lazio in Rome, handsome guy, you can imagine. I don't got to tell you, he wasn't hurting for attention.
Right.
Then he comes here with the New York Cosmos, and he's with Pelé and Beckenbauer and everything else. And, think about when we would go out to dinner, every restaurant knew who Giorgio was.
Yeah.
Giorgio was bigger than life.
Yeah.
Right? He was like Clyde Frazier. He was like, one of these guys, Joe Namath, in New York area. During that time, I know it's hard to sort of fathom, but he really was that big.
Yep.
And, as we got older, and he passed now, but as we got older, it was strange because the demographics in New York changed. And suddenly the Italian restaurant wouldn't have Italian waiters. They were from Ecuador or from Peru or someplace wonderful that they were there, just wonderful workers, but they don't know who Giorgio is.
Right.
They never saw the Cosmos, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a hard thing when it hits you,
Yeah.
And I saw it firsthand with George, how it affected him, and where, and the irony is most of these guys were like, please leave me alone. I'm too busy. I'm too famous. And then when the fame fleets, it's a tough one to handle, I think.
Oh, so well said.
And Charlie Stilitano has more great stories to tell, including his path after leaving the Metro Stars of Major League Soccer as he pushed on and got involved in the international game at an even bigger level. We'll let Charlie pick it up there when we return to this special edition of Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast, reminding you that in 2 weeks, the new format will return with Christian Lavers, Doug Bracken, and Ashley Willis as they break down the recent ECNL Boys and Girls National Championships. It's Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast with Charlie Stilitano, and we'll have more Charlie after this message.
From athletes just starting to turn heads to some of the best athletes to ever play their games, Gatorade shows that they are the proven fuel of the best. For the athletes who give everything, nothing beats Gatorade, the studied, tested, and proven fuel of the ECNL.
So remind me, Charlie, you're rolling along in MLS, and then you leave, but then you become this. Well, you always were. I mean, God, you were, because you did the Parmalat Cup before.
No, Parmalat Cup was 95.
Oh, it was right after the World Cup.
Right after
Okay.
the World Cup.
All right. Incredible. Okay. All right. Thanks for reminding me that. Okay. But still before MLS. So you've always been a promoter. So remind me of the cycle. So after MLS, and then, you got this.
Yeah, no, it's look, I'm a product of my area growing up, right? And so we forget, and I brought this up today, we weren't sure it was going to be successful, the World Cup. I mean, we all hoped, but we had no idea, let's be honest. In 92, when we're all taking jobs with with the World Cup, we're like, I hope we sell the tickets. I hope we fill the stadium.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And there was that, God, everyone would always talk about the Montreal Olympics, like this boogeyman, we don't want to be like them when they lost $250 million. And that was like unbelievable. And it's the end of the world. And we better form a different company away from U.S. Soccer so we don't bankrupt U.S. Soccer and all these things you don't think about. And so I grew up with like ethnic soccer is what drives the sport.
Okay.
And maybe a little bit like that in L.A. with the Mexican community, right? In our area, the Cosmos, the original Steve Ross, I call him, who started Time Warner, he had a theory. If he could bring a player from each different ethnic region, he could fill the stadium because 5,000 people would come see Beckenbauer, 5,000 people would come see Giorgio, Italians, Germans and Italians, then 5,000 people would see Niskins, Dutch people, and he had this thing, and he had this incredible team that he put together, but he put it together for a very genius reason. He said, if I had to advertise for Time Warner, it would cost me millions and millions of dollars. Instead, I have Pele, I have Beckenbauer, I have Quinala, I have all these troupe of incredible superstars in the world. They were invited to China before anyone was invited,
Right.
They were the first team that was invited after Nixon, Détente, and whatever,
Right.
That's it,
That's right.
And so, you know I'd have to pay to get that, he used to say, and he would fill me in with Giorgio. So a little bit was like we really need to cater to the ethnic community here. And the ethnic community was still Italian, was still a big Italian community, still Western European, German, English, Irish, and so we had that. And what had finally happened, and people don't realize this, 94 World Cup, they didn't have Hispanic marketing for Boston or New York, by the way. I don't know the other venues, but no Hispanic marketing. So Gillette and stuff, this was all English.
Wow.
And so this was only 1994. So our focus was, and the Colombians were just coming into the New York area, right? And so there really wasn't the big population outside the big European population. So we thought, you know what? Let's start bringing teams here to keep this going. The Parmalat Cup was our test.
Okay.
Can this work?
Okay.
Can this work? So we brought the U.S. national team, Benfica, Parma, and Boca Juniors. So we brought a South American team. It was my brother's brainchild because they all had Parmalat as sponsors.
Yeah.
And so Boca Junior brought the South American community. With Parma, you brought the Italian. With Benfica, you brought the Portuguese.
Yeah.
So you have this so we had 80,000 people in 2 days.
That's right.
And so we said, next year we're going to bring Fiorentina, we're going to bring Benfica, we're going to bring the Colombian national team one year. We played, the Metro Stars, the Colombian national team. We had the Colombian national team play the Metro Stars.
How about that?
Because we wanted to bring these people in to see our product.
Yeah.
And not sure they would have come in just to see, Tab and Tony and Donadoni, bless them, the great players, ambassadors, you name it. But after them, Miles Joseph, I love Miles. Still one of my favorite people in the world, you know. Brian Kelly, different guys, I
feel like Miles is still playing, by the way.
Yeah, I feel like he is too. But I'm saying wonderful people. They weren't recognized by the ethnic community, right? So, so a lot of what drove my sort of thinking in those days was to try to cater to the ethnic community. And that's really where I started to see this sort of that even the American kids that were now being developed and becoming fans, where they were starting to be interested in Real Madrid or Roma or this and that. It wasn't just Italians. It wasn't just Spanish people, for example. So when I got fired from MLS, I was like, now what do I do? And I just decided, I'm going to start a promotion company.
All right.
And I just went out and started Champions World, and I took a lot of my contacts I made over the years, really starting with World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was talking about it today, I befriended managers like Arrigo Sacchi and, Bertie Vogts from Germany, different things. You go to dinner with these guys, and so now you have to go meet with, the manager of Celtic, but that a guy knows the manager, so he can call him, and you could get in touch with him, right?
Yeah.
And so this developed, and I just became. I became a bit of a soccer rat in Europe, and I spent my money and time in developing contacts and friendships and earning trust. That's it. Just earning trust.
Incredible. And then the media thing. So you still do this radio show?
Yeah. It's almost 18 years, I think, now. I can't remember. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, you would know better than me. Find out when Sirius started.
Yeah.
And a guy named Scott Greenstein, who's still there, and he was the head of entertainment, he loved personalities.
Yeah.
He and, what's the guy's name with the K? Famous radio guy. They brought in Howard Stern.
Okay.
And so the idea was suddenly they were paying Howard Stern $50 million a year because they would tie it to subscriptions. And he had an idea that I'll get all celebrities. So Sirius, and in fact, they're in Rockefeller Center, which is a bizarre thing. The radio business. It's not like they have money to throw around.
Right.
But he said, if I'm in New York, Mick Jagger will come here. Or, Roger Daltrey will come here. Or, I'll get every famous person to come through here, whether it's Reggie Jackson or whatever, come and do a radio show with us.
Yeah.
And so he came to me and he said, there was a guy named Leo Hendry who started Liberty Media, and he was really the guy with the Yankee Nets organization.
Okay.
And started the Yes Network.
Yeah.
And Leo's a brilliant guy, and Leo was, he was one of these guys that was really forward thinking. Anyway, so a guy who worked for Leo Hendry said he was doing stuff with Sirius, and he said, why don't we do something with soccer?
Yeah.
Soccer's growing here,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so European soccer in particular was growing, right? And we were still a little bit, MLS still sort of struggling along,
But
right?
you had your heartbeat all over that European scene.
Yeah. And so in the end, he said, Charlie, I want a guy named George. You know Giorgio Canaglia? I go, yeah, I know Giorgio Canaglia. He works with me at Champions World. He's like, really? He goes, I want him to do a show with Eric Cantona. And the way I envision it, you can be in between sort of keeping them going. So my wife lived in France, and she called Eric's agent for me and talked in French. It was his brother, I think. And Eric Cantona asked for, you're going to laugh, $1 million a year to do radio, and nothing could be live because he has a reputation, and he has to hear everything first, or I have to hear everything first, the agent would say, so he wouldn't sound stupid about something.
How about that?
So that didn't go over big at all with Scott. And
Okay.
so then we were trying to find Rodney Marsh, who's now on the show, on the station. We couldn't find him at the time, and he said, listen, you just do it with Giorgio for a little while.
Okay.
And so, I struggled through. Giorgio was the natural. He'd done TV and radio and stuff. And so, but I struggled through, and we'd do the Chelsea pregame show.
Okay.
And then we get the Chelsea radio feed.
Okay.
For free.
Yeah.
And this was probably 2004 or 5 we started.
Unreal.
And then we started doing the Champions League on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights, and then it grew into a whole station.
Holy
so
Toledo.
we were the first ones, Giorgio and myself, the first ones.
And now you see, I think Tony Wright is on it. And
Tony's on it. Eric Winalda. No, not Harksey.
Okay.
Eric's a regular. Tony's a regular. Brian Dunsett's a regular.
Okay.
It's really crazy. It's 24/7. It's the Premier League, all MLS games, FA Cup games, Champions League games. They're all on the station, and so a lot of these guys that Tony's remained a dear friend. Tab, I had lunch with him. Tab the other day. It's like, yeah, it's really, really heartwarming to see all these guys giving back.
And what if you have to miss a day? What happens? I mean, you can't be there.
No, there's like there was 3 of us, 4 of us that used to do at the show, and we 2 at a time, and so you'd switch 3-4 days a week. And now it's a guy named Tom Rennie, who is the Talk Sport, myself, and Ray Hudson.
Okay, wow.
And so Ray and I will do 2-3 times a week, and Tom will do the other days with us. And it's, so it's 5 days a week. It's actually 7 to 10. It's long, live radio, you're getting up at 5 and getting ready for the show, and you're doing till 10 o'clock, and then I got to do my day job, so.
Yeah. Now, have you written a book yet? Have you thought about writing a book?
I have.
You have?
Thought
Okay.
about writing a book.
Okay.
Have not written it.
Okay.
And in fact, my wife is going to leave me of 31 years because I don't clean out this whole storage unit I have with all old papers and stuff in it. And I just dug up an old MetroStars player handbook.
Okay.
And it's funny because I was with, like I said, when Kevin Payne went to his memorial service, and they were just they were saying what an incredible person he was, and how he was his vision of DC United, and how it was so amazing and so forward thinking and so brilliant. Could not agree more with what they said.
Yeah.
Now, after the memorial service, Nelson Rodriguez comes to me and he goes, "Do you remember our vision statement?" And I'm like, "No, I can't remember. It was exactly like Kevin's." Right?
Oh, that's cool.
And it was really cool. And I was like, "That's really cool." So I found it the other day, and sure enough, it was, to be one of the great clubs in the world like Kevin's was. It's nice you feel a little bit like you've done some good things.
So, but it's going to take some time to write the book, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I got to get to it. It's time.
Yeah, I'm definitely buying it, and I love those stories. I've only got a couple more minutes with you, but this has been awesome, Charlie. By the way, Kevin Payne ostensibly was my first boss. I felt bad because Hank was claiming me.
Right.
But I was with Brenda and Keith Walker, believe it or not, beforehand.
Sure.
And then Kevin came in, and then Hank came in. Then Hank ostensibly did become my boss, but Kevin really was my boss beforehand, and he reminds me of that all the time. In fact, I broke his ribs playing basketball at Colorado College, and he also reminds me of that too, So, I mean, Charlie, I was sitting in U.S. Soccer when they were bringing in Franz Beckenbauer they considered him before Bora.
Yeah.
You remember all that?
Sure,
and then,
I remember it. Sure.
Yeah, and the next thing, Bora was walking through, and the biggest thing was Alan Rothenberg beating Werner Fricker. That was massive as well.
That was Big Shrimp. And, you don't realize that. I told Alan this story that, my father and his guys were all delegates for the state of New Jersey Amateur Association. And in those days in particular, the Amateur Association, I don't know what it is like today, but was the Adult Association, was all ethnically driven. So New York had all Italians and, whatever, and different Portuguese in different states and, whatever. And it was all ethnically driven. And they came back after that convention. And they said, we voted a new guy in, Alan Rothenberg. And I said to my dad, I go, "Dad, how did he win?" He goes, "Big Shrimp." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Well, he had these cocktail receptions for people, and he had the most luxurious spread, and all these guys were used to a ham sandwich,
Right, yeah.
So Alan's like, I'm putting shrimp out there. Who knows what else he had out there?
Big Shrimp.
And so the guy's like, they had Big Shrimp, and they're like, okay, so I must have got their vote that way, So kind of funny. Werner Fricker was a great man in his own right, and it's but the step that Alan took was, enormous, and he shouldn't be ever forgotten as one of the real giants that helped this game grow. Him, Sunil. Those guys, they should never. I know they're not going to be forgotten. There's place in history for those guys. Did amazing jobs.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to say Sunil, and you said it beforehand. And then real quickly, how did you connect with Jay Howe as we wrap up our time here?
Jay, we were doing work with. I guess we were at CAA at the time, and we were doing work for Chelsea.
Okay.
And we had this vision. My partner, John Scheinman, a good man, one of my dearest friends still today. He's at Some right now. He's at Some. And he had a wonderful idea on how we could tie Chelsea brand to these clubs,
right?
Big youth soccer.
So that's how you And
so we stumbled upon Jay. He had his license plate was Scudetto. So he had me at hello.
Right.
And I was like, okay, this guy's pretty cool. And I got to know him. I got to like him. And now I love him. What can I tell you?
How about that? Can you believe his kid and my kid went to the same middle school together? They were buddies. Like, he spent the night at his house.
Wow.
That only happened because Jay didn't know I was his dad.
Right.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have been allowed to the house, I think.
Exactly.
All right, Charlie Stilitano, this has been awesome. We could probably talk all day long, but let me just thank you for being a part of this uber successful ECNL Coaches Symposium. Let me thank you for letting us go down memory lane. I can't wait for your next big event that's coming down the road, and will continue to come down the road. This has been outstanding.
Thank
Charlie
you
Stilitano,
so much, Dean.
you're
Really
a living
appreciate
legend.
it.
This
Thanks,
has been great. The main man, Charlie Stilitano.
That was fun, and I actually forgot how much fun that interview was with Charlie Stilitano back at the ECNL Coaching Symposium and AGM in January of 2024. I do want to remind you that on Wednesday, July 31, we return to the new format of Season 2, where Christian Lavers, the president and CEO of the ECNL, Doug Bracken, the vice president, Ashley Willis, who's got a big title as well, will return. They'll break down the ECNL championships and look forward with exciting issues, and they'll also answer the questions from you, the members of the ECNL. If you have questions for Christian, Doug, and Ashley, please send them in to info@theecnl.com. Once again, I want to thank Charlie Stilitano, all the great people at the ECNL, as well as my producer, Colin Thrash. For each and every one of them and all of you, I'm Dean Linke. We'll see you in 2 weeks for another edition of Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast. Thank you for listening to Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast. And remember, if you have a question that you want answered on Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast, email us at info@theecnl.com.